Have you ever taken that first bite of a warm, tender pot roast and instantly felt like you were back in your childhood kitchen? That smell, the texture, the memories, it's comfort food at its finest. For many of us, especially those of us over 60, pot roast isn't just a meal, it's a tradition. It reminds us of Sunday dinners, family gatherings, and cozy moments that have stayed with us through the decades. But here's something that might surprise you. The very way we've been preparing pot roast all these years could actually be putting our health at risk. Now, I know how that sounds. After all, pot roast is supposed to be hearty and wholesome. So what could possibly be wrong with it? That's what we're diving into today. Because doctors are sounding the alarm on how one common cooking habit with pot roast, something a lot of folks do without thinking twice, could actually open the door to serious illness, especially as we get older. And when your immune system isn't what it used to be, these small risks can turn into big problems. We're going to talk about what the danger really is, how to avoid it, and what simple steps you can take to keep enjoying your favorite dishes without sacrificing your health. Because yes, you can still have your pot roast and eat it too. You just need to know what to change. Let's start with something that often gets overlooked. How long meat sits at room temperature before it's cooked. You'd be surprised how many people take their roast out, season it, maybe run some errands or wait for the oven to preheat. And by the time it goes into the pan, it's been sitting out for over an hour. This might not seem like a big deal, but to bacteria, that's a golden opportunity. And the older we get, the more our bodies struggle to fight off the kind of bacteria that grow on improperly handled meat. Things like salmonella and listeria, which can lead to serious complications in seniors, including hospitalization. Doctors warn that once meat has been out of the fridge for more than 2 hours, or 1 hour in a warm kitchen, you're entering the danger zone, where bacteria multiply rapidly. And here's the kicker. Even if you cook it thoroughly later, some of those bacteria can leave behind toxins that don't go away with heat. So the key isn't just in how long you cook the roast. It's how you treat it before it hits the oven. And it's not just timing. Another risky habit is searing meat in the same pan you'll be slow cooking it in, without washing the pan first. I know this sounds counterintuitive, especially if you love building flavor. Searing does add a rich, caramelized layer to the roast, and many of us were taught that it's the secret to a good meal. But what happens is that those high heat drippings, if not managed properly, can char and turn into harmful compounds, particularly when they're exposed to lower heat for long periods during slow cooking. Those charred bits you scrape up to make a gravy or sauce. They might taste great, but they can also contain something called heterocyclic amines, or HCAs, which are known to increase cancer risk when consumed in large amounts over time. For older adults who are already more vulnerable to inflammation and chronic disease, this is something to take seriously. It doesn't mean you need to give up on searing completely. It just means you need to do it right and know when to clean the pan before moving to the next step. Another thing many people don't think about is the cut of meat itself. Pot roast usually involves tougher cuts like chuck or brisket, and while those are great for slow cooking, they can also be fattier. And here's where the trouble starts. If that fat isn't trimmed properly, or if you're not using a method that allows the excess fat to drain or separate during cooking, you end up with a meal that's far heavier on saturated fat than you might expect. For someone trying to manage heart health, cholesterol, or blood pressure, that's a recipe for problems. Even if you've always used the same cut of meat, now might be a good time to try leaner options or trim the roast more carefully before cooking. Some folks even like to chill the cooked pot roast before serving, so the fat rises and solidifies, making it easy to scoop out. That way, you still get all the flavor without all the unnecessary fat. And while we're talking ingredients, let's not forget about what we're putting in with the roast. Many traditional pot roast recipes call for things like onion soup mix, packaged gravy, or bouillon cubes, all of which are loaded with sodium and preservatives. For those of us keeping an eye on our blood pressure or kidney health, that's a serious concern. One little packet might seem harmless, but it can push your sodium levels way past what's safe for a single meal. Instead, consider seasoning your roast with fresh herbs like rosemary, thyme, garlic, and a splash of low-sodium broth. You'll still get rich, comforting flavor, but without the hidden health risks that come with those overly processed additions. Now that we've looked at how we handle the meat, the pan, and even the seasoning, you're probably already seeing how small habits can add up. And that's really the heart of the issue. Cooking pot roast, or anything really, doesn't become dangerous overnight. It's the little things we don't think about, done over and over again, that slowly create problems for our health. But the good news is, just like those habits can creep in, we can swap them out just as easily for healthier, safer ones. Now that we've looked at how handling and preparation can quietly sabotage a dish we've loved for years, let's move on and explore what happens during the actual cooking process. Once the roast is in the oven or the slow cooker, most of us like to just walk away and let the magic happen. And honestly, that's when the joys of pot roast, low effort, big payoff. But here's the thing. The temperature you cook it at and for how long plays a much bigger role in your health than you might think. A lot of people assume that low and slow means setting the slow cooker on low and leaving it alone all day. But that low heat might not always be enough to bring the meat, and especially the internal juices, to a safe temperature fast enough. Doctors are now warning that undercooked or unevenly cooked meat can still harbor bacteria even after hours in the cooker. You might not taste it, and it may look done on the outside, but if the inside hasn't reached that golden number, at least 145 degrees Fahrenheit for beef, with a good rest period afterward, then you're still rolling the dice. For immune systems that aren't as strong as they used to be, this isn't something to take lightly. And it's not just about hitting the right temperature. It's about how fast you get there. If meat spends too much time in that danger zone, between 40 degrees Fahrenheit and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, while it slowly creeps up in temperature, bacteria can multiply like crazy before the heat finally catches up. That's why some experts recommend giving the meat a quick sear or even preheating broth or veggies before adding them to the pot. It helps raise the starting temperature, so your food spends less time in that risky range. Another thing we don't always talk about is cross-contamination during cooking. We're so used to our routines, using the same cutting board for the meat and then the vegetables, or stirring the pot roast with the same spoon we used when the meat was raw, that we don't even notice it. But that's one of the fastest ways for bacteria to spread. Even small amounts can cause illness, especially for older adults. It might sound like overkill, but using separate utensils and surfaces for raw and cooked foods really does make a difference. And if you're prepping a roast with family or grandkids helping out, it's a great time to model these safe habits. Not only are you protecting your health, but you're also passing down better cooking practices for future generations. Now let's talk about leftovers. I don't know about you, but one of the best things about pot roast is enjoying it the next day. Maybe tucked into a sandwich or served over some mashed potatoes. But storing leftovers properly is something many people overlook. How many times have you finished dinner, let the pot sit out while you relaxed or chatted, and then pop the leftovers into the fridge an hour or two later? Here's the issue. If your pot roast cools too slowly, especially in a deep dish or a big container, the interior may stay warm long enough for bacteria to start growing again. That's why food safety experts now suggest dividing large amounts of leftovers into shallow containers, which helps them cool faster and more evenly. You can also leave the lid slightly ajar in the fridge for the first hour to release trapped heat, and then seal it fully once everything has cooled. And reheating? That's just as important. You want to make sure your leftovers are steaming hot all the way through. 165 degrees Fahrenheit is a safe number to aim for. A quick microwave zap might warm the edges but leave the center cold, which is why stirring or flipping the meat during heating is key. Again, it's a small habit, but it can be the difference between a cozy lunch and a trip to the doctor. There's also the issue of how long you keep those leftovers. I know it can be tempting to hang on to them for several days, especially when they still smell and look fine. But most health experts recommend eating refrigerated cooked meat within 3 to 4 days. After that, even if you don't see or smell anything off, the risk of bacteria rises significantly. It's one of those better safe than sorry situations, especially as we age and our digestive systems become more sensitive. Now, here's something you might not have expected. The cookware itself can play a role in your health, too. Many folks use older slow cookers or roasting pans that have seen better days. Maybe they got scratches, chips, or that worn enamel that's flaking a bit around the edges. While it may not seem like a big deal, damaged cookware can leach materials into your food, especially when used over high heat or for long cooking times. Some of the older non-stick coatings, for example, can break down over time and release harmful chemicals. And certain aluminum cookware, if it's not coated properly, can react with acidic ingredients like tomatoes or vinegar, especially if the food sits in the pot after cooking. This can lead to trace metals leaching into your meal, not something you want to be eating, particularly if you're already managing issues like kidney health or bone density. Investing in safer cookware doesn't have to be expensive. There are wonderful, affordable options out there made from stainless steel, ceramic, or newer non-toxic non-stick materials that are far gentler on the body. And if you're not ready to replace anything just yet, at least check for obvious wear and tear. Sometimes, just using a liner or changing your utensils from metal to silicone can help prevent further damage. All of this may seem like a lot to think about, especially for a dish we've been making for decades. But the truth is, our bodies change with time. What we could shrug off in our 30s or 40s may now affect us differently in our 60s, 70s, and beyond. That doesn't mean giving up the meals we love. It just means getting a little smarter about how we make them. Small changes, thoughtful choices, and the kind of attention to detail that turns a delicious meal into one that's both comforting and safe. Now, let's keep going and talk about the surprising ingredients you might be using in your pot roast that could be working against your health instead of for it. As we continue, I want to share something that might surprise you. It's about the ingredients we often use in pot roast. While the vegetables, the meat, and the spices are all typically fine, there are certain ingredients we tend to overlook that might be causing us more harm than we realize. For instance, many people still rely on prepackaged broths, seasonings, or sauces for convenience. And while they save time, they often contain high levels of sodium and preservatives, both of which can have long-term effects on our health, especially as we age. You see, excessive sodium intake is linked to an increased risk of high blood pressure, heart disease, and kidney problems. For older adults, whose bodies may not process salt as efficiently as they used to, the consequences can be even more severe. So, next time you reach for that packet of seasoning mix, consider making your own broth or using a lower sodium alternative. It might take a little extra time, but the difference it makes to your overall health is well worth the effort. One way to do this is by using fresh herbs and spices. Not only do they add incredible flavor to your pot roast, but they come with the added benefit of health-boosting properties. Garlic, for example, is known for its ability to help regulate blood pressure and reduce cholesterol. Thyme and rosemary, both commonly used in pot roast, are packed with antioxidants that can help fight inflammation and support your immune system. A little bit of fresh rosemary or thyme goes a long way in enhancing flavor without the need for a lot of added salt. And don't forget about vegetables. Carrots, potatoes, and onions are traditional, and for good reason. They're rich in vitamins, fiber, and antioxidants. However, if you've been using canned veggies, it might be time to make the switch to fresh. Canned vegetables often have added sodium and preservatives, and while they're convenient, fresh vegetables will give you more nutritional bang for your buck. You can even try some new additions like parsnips or turnips to add more variety and flavor to your meal while keeping it nutritious. Now, let's turn our attention to the cooking oils we use for searing the meat. Many people opt for vegetable oils or even margarine, not realizing that they can be highly processed and filled with unhealthy trans fats. These fats are known to contribute to heart disease, inflammation, and obesity. Instead, try using olive oil, which is rich in heart-healthy monounsaturated fats. Olive oil has also been shown to help lower bad cholesterol levels and reduce the risk of chronic diseases, making it a great choice for cooking your roast. As we age, our bodies may also become less efficient at metabolizing fat. Therefore, it's even more important to make healthier choices in our cooking oils to support cardiovascular health and reduce the risk of chronic conditions. Even small adjustments, like swapping your oil, can have long-lasting benefits for your heart and overall well-being. Now, I know some of this might sound like a lot to think about while you're preparing your pot roast, but believe me, it's all about small changes that add up over time. The reality is that we're all becoming more health conscious as we age, and what we put in our bodies matters more than ever. But that doesn't mean we have to give up the things we love. We can still enjoy a hearty, flavorful pot roast with just a few tweaks to make it healthier and safer for us. Finally, let's talk about one of the most common risks that often gets overlooked: the safety of the meat itself. When buying a roast, it's important to ensure that you're purchasing high-quality meat. Pay attention to how it's stored at the butcher or grocery store, and make sure you're getting it from a reputable source. Look for organic or grass-fed options, if possible, as these tend to have fewer chemicals and hormones than conventionally raised meats. Another crucial tip is to always ensure your meat is fresh and hasn't been sitting in the fridge for too long. If you're unsure about how fresh it is, it's always better to err on the side of caution. And before cooking, make sure to check the expiration date and use your senses. If it smells off or the color doesn't look right, it's better not to risk it. Remember, it's not just about the ingredients you use, but how they all come together to create a safe and nourishing meal. You want to feel confident that your pot roast is something that will give you strength and joy, not lead to unwanted health risks. So, next time you decide to make your favorite pot roast, take a moment to think about the steps you're taking to ensure everything is cooked safely and healthily. A little extra care in how you cook your food can make a world of difference in your long-term well-being. In conclusion, cooking a pot roast doesn't have to be a dangerous endeavor. By making some simple adjustments, like checking your cooking temperature, avoiding overcooked leftovers, ensuring proper food storage, and being mindful of the ingredients you use, you can continue to enjoy the meals you love without putting your health at risk. And remember, it's not about perfection, but about being aware and making better choices where you can. Your health is worth it. So, take these tips to heart, share them with your friends or family, and feel free to comment below with your thoughts or additional tips that you've learned over the years. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more videos like this, full of practical advice to keep you living your best life, healthy, happy, and safe. Here's to many more delicious, safe, and joyful meals to come. Take care and happy cooking.